difficult to get along with, a petri dish of viruses, and always looking to insidiously plant its seed everywhere it goes. It's basically the Charlie Sheen of countries, except the one-child policy. See, in recent news, tensions rose to an all-time high between India and China when soldiers of both sides collided along the Galwan Valley, resulting in several casualties. In an effort to reinforce its borders, both countries have propped up defense systems, reallocated troops, and invested heavily in military infrastructure. China even went a step further, and this is real, by enlisting actual martial arts fighters and former members of their Olympic torch relay team. Like, I can still understand Mr. Miyagi teaching them to crane kick motherfuckers, but did the runners really not have anything else planned for 2020? And look, while the loss of lives on both sides is truly tragic and our hearts go out to the victims and their families, it is important to know that this is not the first time something like this has happened. In fact, there have been multiple skirmishes between these two countries along their border. This time, India responded as any middle-aged suburban dad would to their toddlers' tantrums. We cancelled their favorite apps, boycotted their toys, and tried severing all ties by completely abandoning them in the middle of the mall on Santa's lap Christmas Eve 2003 with nothing. Anyway, this pattern of behavior as the rotten greedy child extends beyond India to 18 of its 23 neighboring countries. For example, China has staked claim on several parts of Laos, Cambodia, and Mongolia on grounds of dynastic rule hundreds of years ago, or as they put it, historical precedent. That's like digging up an out-of-context tweet from 20 years ago and using it to completely obliterate a person's career. We wouldn't do that, would we? You might be thinking I'm making mountains out of molehills, but China is literally making mountains out of molehills in the middle of bumfuck South China Sea to mark its territorial claim over international waters. And moreover, in its own backyard, China recently passed a controversial law in Hong Kong that serves to quell any anti-China sentiments amongst its citizens through unlawful arrests and severe punishments. So basically, they are forcefully imposing their jurisdiction on a region, forcing the people of said region to adopt their nationality, and curbing freedom of speech and movement to ensure that they achieve these goals. I wonder why that sounds familiar. And speaking of anti-Muslim sentiments, no, not these guys. Not him either. There we go. The Xinjiang region of China, home to over 11 million Uyghurs, an ethnic Muslim minority, has been subject to mass indoctrination and ethnic cleansing by the Chinese Communist Party. There have been multiple reports of forced labor, terrible living conditions, and physical and sexual abuse at these internment camps, which the Chinese officials, and this is real, claim to be voluntary vocational training centers where people learn job skills, Chinese language, and laws. Yeah, just as concentration camps were tourist hotspots with state-of-the-art saunas and an experience so cleansing that you literally can't get yourself to leave. And look, while we can go on and talk about Chinese atrocities in Xinjiang, Tibet, Inner Mongolia, and several other regions, these are just some of the outright expansionist policies exercised by China. But just like a plane in a well-orchestrated terrorist attack, some things go under the radar.
This is China's Belt and Road Initiative, the most ambitious infrastructure project in modern history that's designed to reroute global trade. And it's how China plans to become the world's next superpower.
We should take an innovative approach and jointly build an economic belt along the Silk Road.
A month later, Xi is in Indonesia.
The two sides should work together to build up a new maritime road in the 21st century.
Thanks for your insight there, you overgrown, out-of-work Winnie the Pooh, but we'll take it from here. See, while this initiative sounds good for all countries involved, you start to wonder why China turned into goddamn Oprah all of a sudden. You get a bridge, you get a port, new highway for you, everyone gets infrastructure. And yeah, that sounds awesome. But the fact of the matter is that the Belt and Road Initiative has often been accused of something known as debt trap diplomacy. What this essentially means is when a wealthy country lends out excessive amounts of money to another, often underdeveloped country, knowing damn well that they are going to default on their loan. Time goes on, and while the poorer country's infrastructure improves, it is also burdened with a ridiculous amount of debt. The result? The rich country exacts political or economic favors from the indebted country to further its own agenda. And in the wake of this tactic, countries like Malaysia, Pakistan, and Sri Lanka have certainly enjoyed some benefits, but the overarching debt has effectively rendered them at China's disposal. China literally pimped them out and is now pimping them out. And a striking example of this is in the small fishing village of Gwadar in southern Pakistan. In spite of strong resistance from the local communities, China, on the heel of strong financial footing, managed to develop a huge deep-sea port in this region. And while they claim that this port was built to facilitate trade, many analysts believe that it is nothing but a ploy to strengthen their hold in the South Asian region and control sea routes. And look, don't get me wrong, I'm all for Chinese people coming into the country. They are easily the single biggest contributors to global tourism revenue, and if they had anything to do with paneer chili, I'm all for it. But to bring in a force strong enough to wipe out populations and disrupt small businesses is extending that welcome a bit too far. At least Pakistan is one of the popular countries, either due to its wonderful fabrics or, let's be real, this sexy bar of dark chocolate. But the situation gets significantly worse in countries that are much lesser known, like Djibouti. And yes, while it is the greatest answer to when your girl asks you which place you would like to visit next, Djibouti is also a multi-ethnic nation with a strategic positional advantage.
Djibouti has a unique geostrategic location. Bordered by Eritrea to the north, Ethiopia in the west, Somalia in the southeast, Djibouti's eastern maritime borders look towards the Red Sea and the Gulf of Aden. More importantly, between Djibouti and Yemen lies the Bab el-Mandeb Strait, a 19-kilometer wide passage through which more than 4.8 million barrels per day of crude oil and refined petroleum products flow.
The Chinese Navy has been operating a military base in this area to strengthen its hold in the Indian Ocean. And to be completely fair, they aren't the only ones. The US, France, Italy, Japan, and Spain have all set up bases in strategic regions of Djibouti. Damn, with the amount of people trying to set up camp there, apt name indeed. And yes, while you could blame countries like Djibouti for allowing the likes of China to come in and lay the death trap, or rather the death trap, these underdeveloped countries rarely have a choice. They have deteriorating infrastructure, poor public health facilities, and civil unrest that work in tandem with a lack of resources to back them into a wall. Wealthier nations like China have extended an olive branch just to yank back the entire tree in due time. And by using the cloak of diplomacy, they are getting away with it. To conclude, let me offer an analogy. Think of the world as one diverse neighborhood, and for the longest time, the US has been host of board game night, and they invited everyone. The Italians, the Israelis, the Indians, and okay, maybe we were just there for tech support, but still, people came here to unwind, and at face value, everything seemed to be just fine. However, recently the house went on the market and a new owner decided to come in and construct a big fat building on the same plot of land. Being game night, he played his trump card and changed a few rules. Turned up the thermostat, uninvited the Muslim couple, made sure the Mexicans stay on the lawn, and even threw out the nerdy Asian kids. But come on, it's their house, their rules, right? Little did they know that China was hosting another party just across the street, luring the other countries with fancy invites and no cover charges. Everyone started showing up to this party and only found out a few drinks in that they didn't have access to the Wi-Fi, couldn't mingle with each other freely, and while they didn't have to pay an entry fee, they had to cover the cost of everything they consumed to get out. And sadly, this is what we've come to. Due to its recent policies, the US is losing its tag as the global superpower and the leader of the free world. Seizing this vacuum, China is going all in to ensure that they acquire this infamous, albeit unrequired position. And yes, it has been part of their plan for a long time, but now is the best chance they could have possibly gotten. Who are we kidding? If India could be a global superpower, we would too. But having said that, they are doing so in a ruthless and unstable way, undeterred by rules and regulations. They have a greedy and power-hungry leader with a determined goal to achieve the communist agenda, and when you're playing Monopoly with someone like that, you wouldn't want to attend game night anymore. politicking, man, time is ticking, man. Thinking gotta get rid of demons, but I keep in line with the same rules. Better off in the same shoes, you and I are the same too. Isn't that just a shame, boo? Differences that I came through, differences that you ain't you.